Some called me disgusting. Some said I was bad. But when it came time to banish that pesky bird, I was well equipped for the job. They told me I was crazy, insane. Nobody had ever defeated El Diablo in his own cove. And yet, here I was, about to bag the biggest bird of my life. I'd gone rogue. Hey friends, welcome back to the Doghouse. I'm the goodest boy. Today, I'm going to try something a little different. I'm doing a dogumentary. Get it? Dog? Instead of featuring a deck list, today I'm going to explore the concept of rogue decks, what defines them, what separates them from off-meta, and the last time a major rogue shocked the world. So I decided to ask a few pro players the following questions. 1. What do you define as rogue? 2. What do you define as off-meta? 3. Are they always synonymous? And 4. What's your favorite flavor of bacon strip?
No. It's bacon!
After gathering responses from over 5 people, here's what people seem to agree on. A rogue deck is usually a deck designed to go into a tourney and beat the competition in such a way people can't prepare for it. This can be by utilizing off-meta cards that beat only one specific matchup, or cards people generally don't consider viable or a meta threat and thus discount. Essentially, you're bringing a gun to a sword fight. An off-meta deck, by comparison, was usually described as a deck you could play for fun that you know has the chance to perform horribly. Essentially, Tier 2 and below. These are decks you might bring to a league night or kitchen table game seeking to have fun, troll friends, anger friends, ruin friends, strike friends, bury friends, hide friends, lie to police about friends, miss friends, no friends. Well, that was a weird tangent with no basis in reality. Anyways, as far as whether the two types of decks are synonymous, that was a really complicated issue. I got a wide range of responses, so let's see how we can untangle this. So, rogue decks aren't meta decks to start out with, and are usually built to counter a meta for an event. Even though they're not meta, this doesn't necessarily make them off-meta, though they could be, but not always. Just some of the time. If ever. First, a rogue deck has to be unpopular and unknown. The deck can then go on to win said event, which doesn't automatically make it meta or off-meta. However, if the rogue is popular enough and deemed viable enough by the community, it can ascend to meta heaven and become meta, meaning it's no longer rogue, definitely not off-meta, and is now the very thing it once sought to destroy. Although sometimes a deck never gets popular enough and stays rogue, even if it beats the meta and everything else, which makes it an anti-meta deck, which is deliberately off-meta but not considered off-meta, but stays as a rogue anti-meta deck. I hope that made sense, because I'm not reading that bit again. But now that does beg the question. Has this ever happened? Have we seen rogue decks succeed? Well, actually, yes. Let me set the stage for you. Atlanta, Georgia. May 26th of 2024. Red Purple, Red Blue, and Steel Song dominate the meta. In some ways, life hasn't changed much. But amongst the massive swarms of red players and wheeling losers comes someone fresh, new, and handsome? And what does the handsome stranger decide to bring to a stacked tournament, the first DLC in Lorcana history, in a field full of red banish spells, blue power drain, and Steel Song power smack? Why, Amber Amethyst, of course. Now you might be thinking, oh, hyper aggro? How could it have won? But you're wrong! It was a mid-range deck, and all of his opponents fell for the same trap! This run was no mere accident, either. There was a cold, calculating strategy behind this deck. Now let's hear from the handsome stranger himself as to the deck strategy.
The thing I kept reading online is, how does aggro win? How does a yellow-purple deck go all the way to the finals? And you and I both know this is not an aggro list.
Yeah.
Let's just tell me an overall strategy of this deck. What was the thought process?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of people always expect when they see yellow-purple to see the 1/1 questers, such as Lilo and Maleficent, and they just assume that you're going to be playing hyper aggro because Piglet's in the deck. And I was kind of relying on that and hoping for that, because it meant that the matchups that, were maybe not as favorable, like Steel and stuff, would just expect me to go extreme aggro and lose out on, like, the gas of cards and stuff. However, my deck obviously was more centralized on card draw, with cards like Cusco, the rabbits, the followers that could just disappear, and, just keeping the board presence. And a lot of people just got thrown completely off guard when they saw that mid-range strategy and saw that I was actually going to take the trades when I could get them. They never would have expected someone to just suicide their Chernobog followers into a card like their Robin to prevent them from shifting. They're like, oh, well, that's not going to win the game because he doesn't have a high end. How is he going to make it to turns 5, 6, and such and so forth? And then when they started to see the Perdita loops, they started to realize how nasty it was and the card draw that was starting to come from it. And it's just, I loved that surprise factor. It definitely played a big role in, I feel like, my success.
So he built his whole deck around countering people's perceptions of the color scheme. They expected aggro, but got mid-range. He basically told every one of his opponents, I am not who you want me to be. And just because it makes me happy, let's listen to the announcers at the final play of the game just before he wins.
Nothing able to be challenged there.
Yeah, I really like this Mufasa play from Joshua. It makes it so that even if Matthew's able to banish it, there's just another character that's going to have lore that's going to come on board. And we see Joshua playing quite a few characters out, saying, Matthew, you have to answer all of these. If not, I will win next turn. And there we have it.
Wow.
We have a Disney Lorcana Challenge champion. Finally.
Very first in North America. Wow. And coming out of nowhere, this is a list I didn't see coming, and
I don't think anybody did.
And what a joy to see it take the first North American Lorcana Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Congrats to Joshua Paltry there on his run, fighting just about 2,000 players to get to this point, being super innovative with his deck list in a meta that was already super diverse. I feel like this is just honestly the perfect way to finish off this set 3, send off the third set.
So, a rogue deck won the tournament. Surely that would make it meta. Wrong! In fact, the color scheme never won another DLC. Chicago was a green steel deck piloted by the Rat, who should get back in the kitchen. Fort Worth, where I competed, was a red-blue deck. Toronto was yellow-green, which is pretty spicy by itself. But sadly, yellow-purple never won another DLC, cementing its place as the most successful rogue deck in Lorcana history. Thus far. Which brings us to our final, unanswered question of the whole story. What flavor bacon strips do the pros prefer? Bacon, cheddar, bacon, pizza, and bacon.
It's bacon!
So you heard it here first, folks. If you want to be a pro Lorcana player, choose the bacon strips. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this little talk on rogue decks, leave me a comment. If there's a video you want to see in the future, let me know. I'm gonna go chase squirrels now.
Bacon!